All right, hey class, welcome to another week of organizational leadership. Great to see you. We'll take a minute here and debrief last week and we'll talk about the upcoming week. So here we go. Week number 4, we talked about board leadership, one of those critical topics for pastors and church leaders. How do you lead a board? Too few people are equipped to do that. So I hope that was a great chance for you to think about that topic, read about it, reflect, get to actually see a live and in-person board meeting. Great chance just to get you prepped for that important role that one day you will, Lord willing, step into. We finished up our book, Sticky Teams, fantastic book on church leadership. Excited for you to work through the paper and reflect on the important concepts you found in that book. And excited this week to start talking about our next topic, staff leadership, all right, week 5. So let me give you a quick rundown of this week and our goals. Here we go. Unit description. Students will consider the role of a pastor in managing staff. Unit outcomes. Students will be able to demonstrate an understanding of fundamental theory and practices for managing staff. Unit learning objectives describe the goal and fundamental principles of management, identify the primary activities of a manager, and plan an effective staff meeting. All right, so why are we talking about this? Because most churches have some kind of staff, right? Whether that's a custodian, whether that's a bookkeeper, whether that's an office person, a secretary. And even if you don't, I think a lot of the principles of staff management also apply to volunteers, okay? So whether you have a small staff, a large staff, or you're working only with volunteers, these principles are really important for how do you lead people well through the day-to-day operations of the church, through day-to-day ministry. Like I've said throughout the course, the church is not a business, and yet we can learn a lot from the business world about how to do this thing well, this thing that we call management. And also I'd add a practical example. If you can't think of any other reason to be excited about learning more about this topic, have you ever sat in a church meeting and thought, boy, this is maybe not the best use of my time? All right, I think one of the most basic things that we can learn in team management and staff management is how to lead a meeting well. So we're going to talk about that for sure. We'll read about that. But at least at a very basic level, how can we use our time the best for the kingdom? How can we have good meetings? How can we tackle tasks and projects and decisions and do those things well? The book that we're getting into, High Output Management, an excellent book. It is an older book, but I would say that oftentimes in a variety of disciplines, but this is also true in business and in leadership, sometimes you just got to go back to the old stuff to find the best stuff. Usually the modern stuff is building on the shoulders of older books, older writers that have gone before. This is one of those foundational books that gives us just a great overview of the topic of management, gives some really insightful, practical things to look at. I will give you a heads up that Andy Grove is speaking from the perspective of production, the production world, factories producing a product specifically for them, Intel, computer chips. So he's going to work from that, but he's going to make it clear that the processes that go into producing a product like a computer chip are the same processes that go into producing administrative work, like a Sunday church service, a church bulletin, a mission trip, a youth group gathering. It's the same principles, whether you're producing something that you can hold in your hands, a product, or whether you're producing something that is an event or a piece of paper or an experience for people to have. The same processes and principles apply. So just understand he's working from that perspective, but that's how it applies. So those first couple chapters of the book, don't feel like you have to get super bogged down in some of the details of production, but absorb the concepts, understand the processes that you're looking at and how they can apply then to the kind of work that we do in the church. All right, so much valuable stuff in the readings and in the assignments, but I want to give you real quick, I want to prime the pump a little bit on just a couple of topics related to staff leadership. So I'll just give you 3 quick points here to get you thinking in the right direction for this. Here we go. Number 1, meetings don't have to be a waste of time. As I've said, many of us have sat in a church meeting and thought, boy, this is not the best use of my time. It doesn't have to be that way. And maybe this isn't just true in the church for you. Maybe you've experienced this in other workplaces. But it doesn't have to be that way. As a leader, you want to use people's time well. As a leader, you want to inspire people. You want to accomplish good things in your meetings. All right, so how do you do that? A couple of really important practical tips. Number 1, always have an agenda. No matter what kind of meeting, no matter how short or how long or how many people are in it, always have an agenda. At the top of that agenda, you should have a purpose statement. What is the purpose of this meeting? What is the outcome that we're aimed at? Are we trying to accomplish a decision? Are we trying to work through and discuss and get feedback on a topic that we're thinking about? Are we here to receive information like a presentation? What is the goal of this meeting? And I would say that there's basically 3 types of meetings and 3 types of agenda items. All right, 3 types of meetings. There's the one-to-one meeting between a supervisor and the person who reports to them. A team meeting, whether it be once a week or once a month or whatever, a team that works together. They have to have meetings in order to communicate about things, do a variety of things. Or a project meeting, okay? A meeting where you're working towards a goal and you're talking about the status and you're talking about problems and solutions. So at least 3 different types of meetings. Out of those, really the most important is the one-to-one meeting. That might surprise some people, but as you read leadership literature, you'll find that really the one-to-one meeting is that one that is so important for the health of your organization. You need people who work for you to understand that you care about them, that you value them, that you're willing to sit down and have one-to-one time with the people who directly report to you, to hear about what's going on in their life, to encourage them, to talk about the challenges they're facing, the successes they're having, to provide your feedback to them as a manager and a leader, to talk about ways that they can grow, areas that they can improve and learn, as well as just talk about projects and tasks and all those kind of things that they've got on their place, then to ask you questions. So the one-to-one meeting, you'll read about that, but it's such an important part of the organizational system and working with people. 3 different types of agenda items. This is basically how I break down agendas. On agendas, I often label them as one of these 3 things. I'll say that we have, in the meeting, we might have a presentation, a discussion, or a decision, okay? And often meetings have all 3 of those things in them. All right, a presentation is a time when we're going to sit and receive information. All right, I might have in a meeting, I might have a staff member come and give a report on, say, the financial status of the student ministry, right? They might give an update on how are we doing in relation to our budget this year so far, okay? So we're receiving information, a presentation. Then we might have a discussion. Let's discuss the ministry calendar. Okay, there's I've maybe given ahead of time a ministry calendar for the year to the team and said, I want to hear your feedback on this ministry calendar. So we might have a discussion around that. We also might have a decision. All right, at the next youth group event, are we going to have chicken or are we going to have pork? Okay, and so I might just simply label that on the agenda: decision, chicken or pork on whatever date. So those are the things that are going on in an agenda, and I think it's really helpful for your team to know what's being asked of them. Am I sitting and listening to information? Am I trying to discuss information? Or am I trying to make a decision? So make it clear in the agenda, what are we going for? What are we doing in each moment? Try to give people the best chance they can to be able to contribute well and effectively, and to be able to use your time really wisely. All right, so meetings don't have to be a waste. Number 2, delegation is not easy. Delegation does not come naturally. I think a lot of people think, well, I hire staff and then they work for me and then I just give them stuff and they do it and it gets taken care of and they'll let me know when it's done. If you've had that experience, if you've led other people, if you've had people work for you, then you know it doesn't happen that easy. It doesn't happen naturally. It's a lot of work actually to say, I'm going to take the responsibility and authority that's been entrusted to me and I'm going to pass on responsibility and the authority to carry out those tasks to another person. And now I'm responsible for the work of that other person. That's an important thing that you have to understand when you're delegating, is that it's not that you're no longer responsible. It's that you're now responsible for somebody else doing the work on your behalf. Okay, you're ultimately responsible for people who work under your leadership. So then you have to ask the question, well, how do I hold them accountable? How do I communicate well with them? How do I make sure they're doing the right quality of work, the right quantity of work? How do I make sure they're going in the right direction, making good decisions? And there's the work of delegation. That's what leads us to meetings, and that's what leads us to project and task management software like we use at the church. Asana is the name of the program we use. There's plenty of other ones you could use, but a place where people can find what are the tasks that have been assigned to me and when are they due, and do we have a platform to communicate back and forth about them. Now you can use meetings, those things like that, but I think having a computer software is a great way to go to be able to communicate back and forth about tasks and projects, things like that. But the work of delegation is something that doesn't come naturally and it doesn't come easy. You have to work hard. How do I communicate with this person, collaborate with this person, make sure they're doing the right things, doing them well, and that I'm not simply abdicating, but that I am delegating responsibilities to them, as well as the authority to make decisions related to it. Coaching is an important part of managing and delegating, right? You can't do it all for them, but you can coach them, equip them, help them to grow in their ability to carry out the work that's been assigned to them. So much more we could say, but we'll let you get into the readings and think some more of that through. Third and finally, staff leadership. One of the most important things you can do is find the right people. Sounds much easier than it is, doesn't it? Hiring is such an important job of a manager, and doing it well is extremely difficult. So if you ever find yourself in the seat where you're hiring other people, don't take it for granted. Think hard about the right interview questions, the right process. You want to make sure that you have the right people on your team. Hiring the wrong people can be one of the most detrimental and most expensive decisions you ever make. The amount of time and energy and money it takes, it costs when you have the wrong person on your team and you have to go through the process of trying to remedy that. You find out it doesn't work. You have to go through the process of separating with them, of them leaving the organization. It's taxing, it's expensive, it's painful. You don't want to go through that. You want to work hard to make sure you have the right people. So that is true especially for staff, but it's even true for volunteers as well. You want to make sure you have the right people in the right seats. Such a critical and important thing. I'll share with you just real quick a couple of principles. When I'm looking for somebody, whether it's staff or volunteer, I'm looking for three things. I'm looking for great character. I'm looking for somebody who has the ability to learn. They don't have to know everything, but can they figure stuff out? Do they have the initiative? Can they say, well, I don't know exactly how to do this, but I'll figure it out, I'll learn. And three, do they have a bias towards action? Or do they just kind of sit back and let other people do things, sit back and watch the world go by? Or do they have a bias towards, I'm going to get my hands in and I'm going to go get this goal. I'm going to go after this thing. That's something that I look for in people. Do they have great godly character? Do they have the ability to learn? And do they have a bias towards action? They don't have to be the smartest. They don't have to be the most talented, but do they have those things? A great book that we use at the church is called Ideal Team Player. It gives three categories to think about people on your team: humble, hungry, and people smart. It's another great way to think about it. I encourage you to check out that book if you want to learn more about that. But work on your interviews, on your interview skills. Think about working hard at finding the right people and getting them into the right seats. Now, I will also say that as a leader, especially as a church leader, it's very rare that you're going to step into a situation where you get to choose all the people around you. You often step into a situation, there's already a team there. You're hired in as a pastor or as some kind of church leader. There's already a team there. Some people are great and some people are maybe not in the right spot. And so you've got to work through that. You've got to do your best to try to equip them, to try to encourage them, to try to coach them, to try to bring out the best in people, and also then identify when people are maybe not in the right seat and work tactfully through that conversation, which is challenging. So much more we could talk about for management here. We've got just 1 week to dive in and give you some basic and important practical tools. Remember, in this class, we're not just talking about theory or even about the theology of leadership. We're talking about practical tools for leadership. So we want to try to get in the weeds and talk about some of these practices in the short time that we have to cover it. But I hope that this better equips you to be able to lead both staff and volunteers in the church. Well, thanks, everybody. We hope you have an awesome week.